Many believe that climate change is a problem for the future, but the truth is, climate change is a problem of today. Through climate change growing more detrimental to our planet as time progresses, Enlightenment ideals have not been fulfilled. The rapidly changing environment, violating human rights, and negatively impacting the economy as a result of a lack of government intervention to reduce these changes. Climate change violates many human rights, including human health, equality, and safety. The impact of climate change on human health is detrimental, resulting in an increase of health issues. Over the last several decades, an increase of severe weather conditions, such as extreme rain, heat, and drought, puts more individuals at risk for respiratory and cardiovascular problems. A rise in the West Nile virus, the leading cause of mosquito-borne illness in the United States with 39,557 cases reported from 1999 to 2013, can be linked to rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns. Infection rates of diseases such as malaria have also risen, higher temperatures allowing for mosquito populations to rise. In addition, China's economic expansion, largely driven by fossil fuels, has emitted the most greenhouse gases globally, at the expense of human health. In 2015, toxic smog is estimated to have killed 1.1 million people in China. Coal consumption is singled out as the largest contributor to air pollution, driving people away from their homes in large cities in search for breathable air. Not only can climate change impact physical health, but it is also harmful to mental health. A study finds that hotter temperatures, more frequent hurricanes, and added precipitation are all associated with increased prevalence of mental health challenges. Months with more than 25 days of precipitation were associated with a 2% increase in reported stress and depression relative to months with significantly less rain. Exposure to Hurricane Katrina was linked to a 4% increase in mental health problems. The study has also identified increased rates of suicide and more cases of drug and alcohol abuse in areas hit hard by climate change. Furthermore, low-income communities and minorities are less able to combat the impacts of climate change, posing as a threat to equality. Andrew Light from ABC News states that low-income communities and some communities of color are already overburdened with poor environmental conditions and are disproportionately affected by and less resilient to the health impacts of climate change. Safety is also threatened by climate change. Climate change is likely to impact safety by increasing extremism and terrorism as unstable nations become more desperate under extreme weather conditions and economic stress. It also increases natural disasters which destroy people's homes and has negative impacts. Climate change also has a negative impact on the economy, affecting employment and trade and costing billions of dollars in damages. In urban labor markets, due to a greater incidence of extreme weather events causing damage to business assets and infrastructure such as buildings, machinery, production sites, and raw materials, there will be immense job loss. In rural labor markets, an increase in heavy precipitation will result in damage to agricultural crops. Forced migration will occur due to income reduction and job loss due to an uninhabitable environment and abrupt environmental risks. Rising temperatures and sea levels, as well as changes in weather, are expected to increasingly disrupt and damage infrastructure and labor productivity, affecting import and export prices. In nations with economies highly dependent on agriculture like Africa, the industry employing 65% of its labor force, increases in temperature and rainfall reduction associated with climate change will further reduce production and increase the demand for more land and water to compensate for climate stresses. Food insecurity, a major challenge for many Africans along with many others around the world, will get worse as climate change progresses. In Egypt, there is an expected 15% decrease in wheat production from a 2 degrees Celsius increase. In sub-Saharan Africa, 95% of food is grown under rain-fed agriculture, less rainfall making its economy severely vulnerable. In addition, natural disasters cost billions of dollars in damages. It is estimated to take $20 billion by the end of the century to respond to wildfires in California. Likewise, Haiti is extremely vulnerable to natural disasters, more than 90% of the population at risk. As one of the poorest countries in the world, Haiti has not been able to recover from Hurricane Matthew in 2016. The question of whose hands the responsibility falls into to pay for the impacts of climate change is highly controversial. Globally, fuel taxes have been introduced in order to promote ecological sustainability. In France, the price of gas has reached $7.06 per gallon, almost half of this price in taxes, provoking violent protests by the frustrated middle class. Though this is introduced to combat rising temperatures and to contribute to sustainability efforts, it comes at the expense of the middle classes who are unable to afford these high taxes, emphasizing economic inequality. Government intervention has the potential to reduce the violation of human rights and the negative impacts on the economy that climate change inflicts, but globally, political leaders have not been able to effectively regulate the energy market and come to a solution that puts human lives first. Though there are some initiatives being taken globally bringing all the nations together with a common cause, there is still political divide. The Paris Agreement's goal is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping the temperature rise in this century below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and to increase the ability of countries to deal with the impacts of climate change. As the world's largest economy and the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases, the United States has the responsibility to stay in the Paris Agreement and to implement policies, but Donald Trump has intentions to withdraw from the agreement along with Nicaragua and Syria, the only 2 countries that have yet to sign. Earl Blumenauer, a U.S. Democratic congressman, reports that Republicans are defending the Trump administration's action to undercut and isolate the U.S. as the only country to withdraw from the Paris Accord, placing us firmly on the wrong side of history. So the United States is deeply divided on this issue. Republican voters placing climate change as the last out of 29 issues, and Republicans placing it at the top when asked to rank topics important to them for the 2020 presidential elections. Furthermore, citizens globally have advocated for change in government interference, but minimal change has occurred. In Australia, along with many other nations, citizens filed a landmark complaint with the United Nations accusing the government of breaching their human rights. Citizens of the Torres Strait Islands off of Australia's northeast coast claim that rising sea levels caused by global warming are threatening their homelands and culture. The islanders say that Australia's government has no policies in place to meet the country's emission reduction target and is pushing the interests of fossil fuel industries. They also argue that the country should become carbon neutral by 2050, phasing out its use and export of coal completely. Kabay Tamu, one of the petitioners, says Australia's continued failure to build infrastructure and to protect the islands and to take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions constitutes a clear violation of the islanders' rights to culture, family, and life. Though climate change is still a major issue that has not yet been solved, there is hope for the future with new climate proposals such as the Green New Deal, which says that the entire world needs to get to net zero emissions by 2050 and calls on the federal government to greatly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, create high-paying jobs, ensure that clean air, clean water, and healthy food are basic human rights and all forms of oppression. But for now, human rights and the economy are continuing to face the impacts of climate change.